Hey guys, this is Ty Simpson. You're listening to the Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Roll Tide.
The mix of salty sea air and burnt rubber. The big skies, high banks, and grandstands. The rumble in your chest. That's what we love about the Daytona 500. Honoring history and making it. At the biggest race of the year on the biggest stage of a lifetime. That's what we love about the Daytona 500. You gotta see it to believe it. Secure your experience now at Daytona500.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you on a week where we have final exams for Alabama student athletes, gearing up for what's coming up the rest of this month, and for Alabama football, the college football playoffs. So we're excited to be with you on this Thursday afternoon as we take a look to what's coming up this weekend and beyond for the University of Alabama. We'll start our show as we always do with our headlines presented by our friends at RJ Young. Let's first of all see what's coming up with the show today. First of all, we'll take a look back to Sunday. A great basketball doubleheader sweep for Alabama men's and women's basketball. We had the booth cam presented by NASCAR streaming live for both of those broadcasts. Alabama's men's basketball win against UTSA, women's basketball against ULM. We'll first take a look at our booth cam highlights from this past Sunday in Tuscaloosa. Then we'll have a conversation with Cory Reamer, our Cook's Pest Control sideline reporter for Alabama football. He'll break down everything that kind of went wrong against Georgia in the SEC championship game and what's coming up for Alabama in the college football playoff. And then it's time for Hoops with Hendrix for the first time this season, as former Alabama great Richard Hendrix, now an analyst on the SEC network, always joins us at least once a month to break down Alabama basketball, SEC basketball at this point of the season. Looking at the Crimson Tide football team, Alabama falling last Saturday to Georgia, 28-7 the final score. First loss for Alabama in an SEC championship game since the loss to Florida back in 2008. So that was definitely a tough Saturday for all of us that love Alabama football. But on Sunday, the news got pretty good. Alabama selected to the college football playoff as the number 9 seed for the 12-team event, and Alabama will start play on the road against the number 8 seed Oklahoma Sooners next Friday, December 19th in Norman, Oklahoma at 7 p.m. Our radio coverage across the network will begin at 4. We'll have plenty to talk about with Alabama football moving forward on next week's show. Over to the hardwood for Alabama basketball. As I mentioned, a great doubleheader men's and women's basketball on Sunday in Coleman Coliseum. The men's team got it going with a 97-55 win over UTSA in Tuscaloosa. And now coming up on Saturday, the number 1 ranked team in the country, Arizona, taking on the Crimson Tide here in the Yellowhammer State, coming up in Birmingham at downtown Legacy Arena. We look forward to being there for Alabama against Arizona coming up on Saturday. For women's basketball, Alabama picked up its 10th victory to start the year, 75-38 over ULM. This is the best start in program history for Christy Curry and the Crimson Tide. So Roll Tide getting to a perfect 10-0 on the season. They'll try and make it 11-0 coming up on Sunday with the Crimson Tide home against Jackson State. Our coverage will start at 2:45 for that 3 o'clock tip-off coming up from Tuscaloosa. Then other notes with some honors really around Alabama athletics this week. First of all, congratulations to former head football coach Nick Saban, inducted earlier this week to the College Football Hall of Fame out in Las Vegas. Great honor for Coach Saban. LeBaron Philon Jr. picked up another weekly honor from the SEC office. He has been named the SEC Player of the Week after some of his standout performances in basketball, really leading Alabama to those wins against Clemson and UTSA. Also for the Crimson Tide football team, 5 players were selected All SEC by the league office, and Michael Carroll and DeJohn Lee Jr. were named freshman All-Americans by On3 Sports, so certainly some good honors all across Alabama athletics. As I mentioned, we had a fun time on Sunday inside Coleman Coliseum with our booth cam presented by Regions Bank. Here are some of the highlights from a great doubleheader sweep for Alabama men's and women's basketball.
Tap control by Alabama, who has the ball in the front court to our right. LeBaron Philon Jr., one of the best point guards in America, works it in the corner to Sherrell. The rebound by Sherrell. The kick out to Philon, who rattles in the first 3 of the game for the Crimson Tide. Caught by Philon, who flips it ahead to Sherrell. Nice catch and job hanging on to the ball by Sherrell. That was not the best pass in that situation. Philon to the big fella, who was with his back to the basket, but about, 30 feet away.
Yeah, it's a back shoulder throw, I think,
Yes.
is what you football guys call it. Not something,
Well done.
Not something that you want to do to your 6'11" center running down the court.
So good. Timeout. 15:59 remains. If they don't score, they can't win. 5-0 Bama on top. Simpson had it deflected, stolen away on the drive, and throwing it home was London Jemison, and also one of the managers with the Hustle Award, getting out of the way from the wet spot and the incoming London Jemison. But that previous play, we had a run out and a run off by a manager. Good move.
You got some guys under the basket that they're there to wipe up the sweat when guys come flying. That was an athletic play.
It was. And he also had the presence to run towards the corner because he knew we were going to the rim. That was pretty smart as well. Latrell goes right, gets underneath the basket, fires it to Bethea. Corner three, no good. And rebound, Williamson. Great hustling play to save it to Millette. Around in the corner, Bethea again. Three again, bottom again. Out to Reitzel, a deeper three, bottom. That one was from almost, the Wiregrass area on the logo?
You know what I love about Latrell Reitzel? He's 1 for 7 from 3 and just let it fly.
And then just gets a steal and drives, pump fake, shot, good. And what a move. Latrell Reitzel Jr. and Austin Claunch will get a timeout. They work it around near side to Sherrill. Allen back to Sherrill, near side for three. Tell you what, he won't shoot a ton, but he'll shoot a high percentage this year.
Already 10 made threes for Alabama. Got off to an ice-cold start from deep, but heating up.
And then gets a block on the defensive end on the layup attempt by Nunez. It's 51-17 Alabama. Rebound control, and then a deflection by Millette and the steal by Filon. Leaving it for Allen, who gets into the lane, gets to the rack, and throws it home.
Oh, my goodness, Amari Allen caught it at the top of the key, little hesitation, and then accelerated and exploded down the lane.
That was nasty on a Sunday afternoon. Gets it, works left, gets into the lane, double team, kicks it out to Filon. 10 to shoot, Libera, no look pass, inside Jemison, the layup for 2.
And give him 5 assists, Libera and Filon, with back-to-back possessions, beautiful passes.
Jacob Martin into the ball game. A walk-on for Nate Oates' squad. Got some minutes in Vegas. Now goes in and throws it home. A great assist from Amari Allen. And then Martin the catch. And the freight train was coming down the tracks to throw it down. And Alabama, I think, has taken its final shot. Nate Oates says that's enough. And the two friends, Austin Claunch and Nate Oates, shake hands at midcourt as the final seconds tick away and the tide rolls over the Roadrunners.
Alabama against ULM to close out this doubleheader at Coleman. The ball is tipped and away we go. Alabama controls the opening tap, working with the basketball on the right goal. Here's Carly Weathers, right wing, loads up at 3 and connects. Great start for Alabama on the three-pointer by Carly Weathers. Weathers now out to Timmons, left alone left side. Head fake by her, inside the arc. Jumper is up, nothing but net. Collins to Timmons, right corner 3. Switch! Austin finds Weathers, left wing 3. Got it! Dinah Collins. Going down low on the right block to Jones. She's got it and one. A great layup, Naomi Jones. Taken away by Alabama. Carly Weathers with the steal. Now it's Ace Austin driving right side layup. Give it to her. Ace Austin on the scoreboard first time today. Alabama 41, ULM 19. 21 seconds left. Here's a steal by Jennings. The ball trickles to Ace Austin. Finds Weathers driving right side. Lets her defender go by. Puts it up. Puts it in off the square. 43-19. Alabama really pouring it on ULM now. Ingram feeling the backcourt pressure, couldn't get it past Carly. The ball deflected, goes to Timmons. Right side layup good. Another steal, another score, Alabama. Right wing against Carly Weathers, tried to feed the post. It's deflected by Jones, right to Carly Weathers. Great takeaway for the Crimson Tide. Alabama with 11 steals today. Jennings right to the rim, puts it up and in. Electric left-handed move by Wyatta Jennings. Around the perimeter, now Lester driving in from the right wing. Right side lane, spins, bounce pass to the right side. Carly, top of the key 3. Bada. 64-28 Alabama. Carly Weathers in double figures with 11 points. Bounce pass to Douglas, then to Jennings, right to the basket. Left side layup good, and one. Wyatta Jennings comes into Jennings. Jennings will dribble over the timeline and likely dribble out just the final moments of this game. Impressive effort all throughout from Christy Curry and the Crimson Tide today. Alabama started the game on an 8-0 run, never looked back here in Tuscaloosa. For the first time ever, the Crimson Tide women's basketball team off to a 10-0 start. Today's final score at Coleman Coliseum, Alabama 75, ULM 38. Appreciate Ethan Carabin, our video producer, not only producing those live streams, but also cutting up the highlights for our basketball booth cam highlights, again, presented by NASCAR. We always have a fun time catching up with Cory Reamer, our Cooks Pest Control sideline reporter for Crimson Tide football. He gives such great perspective on what it was like for him as an Alabama football player, for Coach Saban, winning a national championship here at the Capstone, and he gives us great analysis each and every broadcast on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. He joins us now to take a look at what's coming up after the loss to Georgia in the SEC championship game and everything as we get ready for next Friday in Norman, Oklahoma. Cory, we weren't feeling great on Saturday, but on Sunday, a little bit of life back in this program with the news. We're going to the college football playoff. How's everything going as we kind of take a deep breath this week before going to Oklahoma next week for the playoff?
Yeah, I think everybody had a little bit of anxiety going into Saturday night, waking up on Sunday morning with the announcement not coming until 11 o'clock. I know in our house, we had the TV on and my wife was like, I can't watch this coverage and listen to this for the next 2 hours until they finally tell us whether we're in or not. So, but I think the committee got it right. I think they set a standard for, playing in these championship games. I think that we're 2 years into this 12-team playoff. And obviously there are some tweaks that, probably are going to continue to be made to try to figure out the best way for us to get the best 12 teams in this playoff system at the end. And I think Alabama's body of work kind of spoke for itself. You've got 4, I believe, SEC teams that are in the final top 12, 5 maybe. And Alabama was the number 1 seed going in the SEC tournament, but they're the last SEC team that gets an at-large bid. And so, I think it's you look at how things kind of ended up, and there's definitely some teams that might be questionable or have reasons for, being left out that you could make a pretty good argument about. But here we are. The field is set, and now you get to go play a team that you've lost to earlier in the season. I think it's a really great draw for Alabama from that standpoint, not just because, it is an Oklahoma team that you feel like you probably should have beaten outside of some of the mistakes that were made. And there's a little bit extra motivation for this team to get ready to go next Friday and be prepared to go on the road to Norman and find a way to win a ball game to keep their, postseason hopes alive.
It was certainly a tough day against Georgia in the SEC championship game, but also that wasn't really Alabama at its best due to some of the injuries. Just how much is having a couple weeks to rest up, heal, get some guys back? How much will that help this football team?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't look good. And there was a lot of bodies that were out there missing. But I think Georgia, and we talked about this kind of going a lot of conversation before going into that game, that Georgia, since we played them earlier in the season, has really trended upwards. I mean, they've been playing some really good football. You can take away the Georgia Tech game. But other than that, they've really improved a lot. And they're a team that was, running the football really well. And for us, it was we played nearly perfect, in the first matchup earlier in the season, 9 for 9 on third down conversions. We knew it was going to take a similar performance from Ty for us to really be in this ball game as good as that Georgia team is. But hopefully this time off gives you some time to get healthy. It's, much needed. There's, Jam Miller, we're not sure what his status was. I think he was listed as questionable for the SEC championship. Cuevas was listed as questionable. And I think those 2 guys are 2 that we hope we see as able to go next week. They are critical parts of this offense, just so that it doesn't all fall on Daniel Hill. And you got Kevin Riley, who's out, not sure what his status is going to be for the game. But we are a running back by committee football team, and we need the whole committee, not just half, to be really effective. And then Cuevas, we felt his, presence missed in that game last week. He's that third down outlet. He's that reliable hands kind of guy for Ty Simpson. He's the guy that you could throw to that comes down with the football when a big play is needed. And but the other thing too is guys that did play that are just a little bit dinged up. Parker Brailsford was a guy that was injured towards the back half of the season, missed the Eastern Illinois game, kind of had to come in and out during the Auburn game because re-aggravated some injuries. Hopefully he's able to go because I think the offensive line is going to be the most critical position for us to get right for this game against Oklahoma. We saw what their defensive line is capable of doing. They've got the luxury of only bringing 4 guys, only rushing 4 guys and able to stop the run with just 4 guys, in our previous matchup. And that is kind of what Georgia did, puts us in a bind, makes it tough for Ty in the passing game to get going. So if you have a healthy offensive line, somewhat of a run game that emerges, you really need all of those things to kind of come in place to be effective against one of the best defenses, I think, in the country.
Yeah, it certainly is a really good Oklahoma team Alabama will face coming up next week. And you mentioned trying to get some guys healthy, get this offensive line playing well. Anything else for Ty Simpson to try and get this offense back on track and to the rhythm we saw earlier in the year?
Yeah, I think there's, we went back and watched the game. There's just some things that everybody around him's got to help him. He's definitely feeling the pressure, or he has seemed like he feels the pressure to go out there and play to this really high standard, and which is great, but sometimes that can be debilitating to a point where you're not seeing things as clearly, or you're trying to force too much, or you're trying to make a perfect pass. If you've got open guys, just hit them. Don't try to make a perfect throw. Just get the ball in their hands. That's the thing, is that we had a lot of drops. We've had a number of drops the last few weeks from our receivers. Those guys can really help Ty get comfortable. Continue to move the chains, get in these long sustained drives that Ty loves to be in, and that's where we're the most effective. We had a couple of first down opportunity passes that were just straight up dropped, and they might not be, the easiest of catches, but these guys are really good receivers, and they've got to find ways to come down with the ball. And if you could do that, it helps Ty's confidence. It helps establish a little bit, opens up the run game a little bit. Don't put us in down and distance situations that they know that we're throwing the football and they're going to be able to drop 7 and make it really difficult. You got 7 guys guarding 3 or 4. It's really hard. I think Jam Miller coming back would be massive because he's got a different level of being able to catch the football out of the backfield, and that's a massive outlet for Ty and for this offense. And so, I think cleaning up the mistakes that were made, and there were a number of them in that last game that really were detrimental for us. So hopefully everybody can get healthy, and this offense it's kind of just one of those that the longer the game goes, the more plays they can have that are successful. They build on that success and they're able to continue that momentum throughout the game. But if they're facing, if they're forced into a lot of 3-and-out situations, it's really hard for this offense to find that level of success and that comfortability that they need to go out there and win ball games.
Then looking back at the SEC championship game too, Georgia able to take advantage of a short field of time on offense against this Alabama defense, and that was really the killer for Alabama in the Oklahoma game a few weeks ago. So Alabama's defense against Oklahoma, does that give you some confidence going into this matchup about how well they played at times? Again, a little shorthanded with a short field due to special teams or turnovers, but that was still a pretty stout performance by the defense.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is playing well. The defense is put in difficult spots. I think that Georgia had the ball on their side of the field a lot, and we were backed up a lot. And it's hard to ask a defense to go back out there after a 3-and-out or only 4 or 5 snaps and then go get a stop when you're already when Georgia's got the ball on their side of the 50. You just don't want to put your defense in those positions all night long because it's a numbers game. It's an odds game. Eventually, these offenses are good enough. If they only have to travel so far to get points, they're going to be able to do it maybe not every possession, but they're going to be able to do it enough where they can put some points on the board. And if we're not returning, with scores from our offense, it could look like the defense is giving up too much. I think the biggest thing for this defense, what I thought, in the last couple of games, while their metrics look good and they're playing good defense, there are certain points in each game where you need critical stops. It's not just the whole game. There's just certain moments late in the game. Maybe we're down. We've got to find ways to get off the field. That's where this defense really needs to start showing up a little bit more, in my opinion. Getting off the field when we're down, a touchdown or down 10 points, and not letting them get, move the ball 30, 40 yards and still end it with a punt, which is good, but you're now putting your offense in a very backed up situation. Got to come down with interceptions. We dropped 2 of them in the Oklahoma game, I believe, that were thrown right to us. You got to be able to catch those footballs because those are game-changing plays. Oklahoma's defense was able to make those plays, and we were not. And that was really the difference in the ball game. And you've got to, I know it's asking a lot because the defense has been carrying this team a pretty good amount these last few weeks of keeping us in the ball games, but those are the plays. And I talked to Kane Womack about it, and he said the exact same thing after the Oklahoma game. I said, hey, your defense is playing well. And his response back to me was, we played well, but we had opportunities to play better. And we would have given our team a better chance to win that football game. And we've got to come down with those interceptions. And so that's definitely an emphasis, forcing some 3 and outs. Don't let these offenses put together a couple first downs and get favorable field position. And then Georgia's punter was able to I thought he should have been the MVP of that football game, to be honest. What he was able to do of keep us pinned deep the entire football game, only crossing the 50 a few times. That is a massive weapon for any defensive coordinator when you've got an offense that just continues to be backed up and having to fight out of a hole to try to find success.
Well, and how about just from a mentality standpoint, too, for this football team? Again, that was such a tough loss, a disappointing performance on Saturday, SEC championship. And we see this in basketball all the times, even baseball in the postseason. You're kind of a bubble team. All of a sudden, you do hear your name called, and it just gives you new life going into the postseason. Do you feel like something could be similar for this group, knowing they're capable of going on a long run here in the college football playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible for any team. That's the hard part about football is any team on Saturday can win football games, and all you need is an opportunity. I mean, you see the games that we've played this year; they've been tight, and we've gotten away with a lot of wins. But you give us another opportunity, just like Georgia got another opportunity against us, and you get a couple of weeks off. You're in the playoff. You've got meaningful football games. You've got some time to get healthy. This team is capable of making a run. I think some of the odds makers and some of the people that have written some articles don't give this team very much of a very great shot of making it to the final, but you've made it here, and now the team can rally around what we've had. We've seen the highs of this team throughout the season, seeing what we're capable of doing, and it's a fresh start. You're in, that pressure is off. You've made it to the playoffs. You want to go out there and execute to the levels that we know we can. And I think that we say it all the time in the pregame coverage or during the games. Our best football is still out there, and we're trying to figure out how we can get both sides of the football to play their best at the same time. We've had offense really carry the team during parts of the season, defense carry it through the other parts. How do we put it all together? And you never know what is going to happen right now. You can find a rhythm, get everybody on the same page, and you go out there and you take care of business next Friday. What that does from a confidence standpoint, leading into the next game, it's just, these are little building blocks. And I think it's, imperative for us to get off to a good start in each of these games. We've had some games where we've been a little bit slow coming out of the gate. And if we can have some early success, this team can really build off of that momentum.
We're looking forward to it. Well, Corey, a dress warm coming up for Oklahoma, even if temperatures aren't going to be as bad as we originally thought. That wind is fierce on the sidelines. So just be ready for it coming up next week. Look forward to seeing you there. Safe travels.
Yeah, I'm going to be calling the sideline report. Your sideline reporter is going to be in the booth with you guys. Yeah, I'm not staying down there. I'm going to be coming up with y'all where the heat is.
Yeah, we have the technology to make that possible. Corey, thank you for your time on Crimson Drive. Roll Tide, man.
Hey, Roll Tide. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Keon Sabb. You're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
This isn't just a race, it's the race. 500 miles of glory, a million memories, one place. That's what we love about the Daytona 500. You gotta see it to believe it. Secure your experience now at Daytona500.com.
Our thanks to Cory Reamer, a valued member of the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and we can say the same about Richard Hendrix. Even though he mostly works for the SEC Network as an analyst, he always joins us on this show as our basketball analyst at least once a month, even more as we get deeper into conference play and into the NCAA tournament. But Richard joins us now to break down what he's seen from Alabama men's and women's basketball and what we can look forward to as the month of December comes to a close. Richard, Roll Tide, man. How's everything gone with your travels and all the games you've seen over the last few weeks?
Roll Tide. It's basketball season, and that's no greater time for me. Love to be in the gym. It's been some good basketball action around the SEC on the men's and women's side, and I'm glad to be on the call.
Yeah, Alabama fans, we're certainly glad you were on the call this past week for Alabama against Clemson in the ACC-SEC Challenge. What impressed you most about that victory? We'll start there with Alabama men.
Well, I thought Alabama looked extremely organized. I was extremely impressed with their ability to come down and play in a more poised type manner. They moved the ball around the perimeter very well, and they got a piece of the paint, which created outside shot efficiency. They started off on fire in that game from three-point line, which is promising. I love the fact that they played with that level of composure. I think when Alabama plays that way and don't necessarily buy into shooting ill-advised shots, as sometimes they can do, which can be effective when they're on fire, I think they're tough to beat. This backcourt that they have with LeBaron Philon, Aiden Holloway is playing really good basketball. Amari Allen is showing that he's a top-level freshman. But the most impressive thing that I saw from that Clemson game was Aiden Sherrill. The emergence of his play in the interior is going to be massive for Alabama, and he needs to be playing at a high level as they get ready to move into SEC play.
Yeah, 8 blocks for Aiden Sherrill in that ball game. He's also been showing that he can step out, hit an outside shot, or just protect the rim in general. Again, is this Alabama team going to go in a lot of ways as he goes? Because we kind of know what to expect a little bit from the backcourt.
I think you're spot on, Roger. I think just the fact that they need to make sure that they are at a strong level on the inside. I think they go deep as they possibly can go on the outside with the guard play. They can shoot it. They have multiple ball handlers and penetrators, guys who can create and play make for others. But it's going to be for Aiden Sherrill to take that sophomore leap, to see what he can do with plays with his back to the basket, offensive rebounding. And, of course, you mentioned the 8 block shots against Clemson. That was so impressive. His rim protection will be critical for Alabama, and hopefully the rest of the front line can get healthy and get back out there and give them some assistance.
We know LeBaron Philon Jr. can score, and obviously NBA teams knew he could score, but they were looking for some different things for him when considering him for the NBA draft. How do you see him in his sophomore season trying to work on all aspects of this game to get ready for the next level?
Well, I think he's done an outstanding job. Many times when you have such a talented team like Alabama had last year with Mark Sears, Chris Youngblood, Clifford Amore, Grant Nelson, when you have these really good players, you look at a freshman and you don't know what they can do when they are positioned to be in the star role. And LeBaron Philon, as a freshman, got a lot of looks from the NBA, ultimately decided to come back. And here he is showing his leadership skill as the number one option alongside Aiden Holloway to be able to deliver. Right now, he's playing with supreme level of confidence. He's a player that if you're guarding him one-on-one on the perimeter, then he feels like he's going to be able to win that matchup. He's playing a high-level basketball, and it's really impressive and fun to watch.
Really has been for Alabama. Again, off to a good start. We saw the Crimson Tide challenge during the November schedule, and now here we are mid-December. There's another challenge looming, a number 1 team in Arizona. What do you expect coming up Saturday in Birmingham?
Well, this Arizona team definitely put the nation on notice when they opened up the season in a neutral site win over Florida. They got a top-level freshman in Koa Pete. He's about 6'8", 6'9", 250 pounds. He's agile. He can score on the block. He's a load on offensive rebounding, and he can even knock down an outside shot. So I think Alabama's woes have always been this season. It's about what can you do as far as interior play and protecting teams that have the ability to post you up and go inside. We've been able to see that Purdue was able to have some success against Alabama, Gonzaga as well. But I do think that this Alabama team and Nate Oates has his squad motivated. They're playing much better in that level of the game, and they'll have another challenge. And more than anything, a big opportunity for Alabama to pick up a significant win that will bolster their NCAA tournament resume to knock off the #1 overall seed and top-ranked team right now in Arizona.
We look forward to that coming up for the Crimson Tide in Birmingham, as Alabama is shown to be one of the better SEC squads to start the season. With some of the other games you've called in the SEC network and just learning more about the league, who stands out to you on this SEC when we talk about men's basketball in this league? Who are the standout teams to begin the year?
Well, I think the dark horse that many people might not be looking at that really has an outside chance to really win the SEC is Vanderbilt. Mark Byington has his team playing elite level basketball. They can play and beat you in many ways. They have a great guard play with Tyler Tanner, Tyler Nickel shooting the ball extremely well from the outside. And, they have a swagger about themselves. Now, Vanderbilt hasn't necessarily played the top teams in the country yet to be tested, but at an undefeated record, they're ranked in the top 25 and playing good basketball. Florida, obviously, has been challenging themselves playing against top-level opponents all season long, and they've changed from the hunter into the hunted, which makes it very difficult. But their front line is probably the best in college basketball, but they have to shore up some things with their backcourt. The guard play is not what it is, but obviously when you lose 3 guards to the NBA like they did last season, that's going to take the time to make an adjustment. And then, of course, with Kentucky, many people had this team be picked to be a national championship contender, but Big Blue Nation has been a little bit concerned about this squad. They've struggled out the gates. They've dropped some big games against some marquee teams, but they're starting to get healthy again, and that's going to be important for them moving into SEC play. They're going to have to figure some things out. But more than anything, the SEC is in a big need, I think, of some signature wins in the non-conference. Last year, I think they really dominated the non-conference slate, which positioned 14 teams to be in the NCAA tournament. Right now, Alabama is the highest-ranked team in the Southeastern Conference, and they're in a good position to have a good seeding. But the rest of the league is tough, but they have some work to do to improve their NCAA tournament resumes.
League play starts in less than a month. Can say the same for Crimson Tide women's basketball, as Christy Curry has Alabama at a perfect 10-0. I know you've called some Alabama games already this season. You will be coming back to Coleman Coliseum to see them again soon. But what stands out to you about this team that Alabama has so far this year on the women's side?
Well, I think this is a unique team. I think when you have 3 girls drafted into the WNBA draft, and Sarah Ashley Barker and Aaliyah Nye and Zay Green, that's going to be very difficult to replace. But I think that this team can be a strong team if they continue to play together as a committee, and with you as a unit. Jessica Timmons has been playing big-time basketball. She's been a threat from the outside. Her ability to break down her man and get into the paint and create for herself and others has been on a high level. She's shown that she's back from missing last season with the torn ACL. And Essence Cody is starting to reach her potential. Double-doubles in a few outings this season and great rim protection on the inside. But this is an Alabama team that's going to have to continue to get it done collectively. I think with the leadership of Carly Weathers, they can be strong. She's been a solid player for her first 3 years at Alabama, and here she is in her senior campaign, making a lot of strides to lead this team. So we'll have to see how they'll do in SEC play, but I think they've got out of the gate pretty well and are playing good basketball as a unit.
We love seeing that for Alabama. Again, you'll be on the call next week for Alabama against Tulane coming up in women's basketball inside Coleman Coliseum. And then just after that, Richard, I can't let you go without asking you your football thoughts. We know you're a diehard Crimson Tide football fan. You excited about this group in the college football playoff trying to bounce back after the loss against Georgia?
Well, I think first off, I think they have done a tremendous job this season. I mean, to see their ability to bounce back after the first loss of the season, play a tough schedule and win so many games to position themselves to obviously in the regular season be the #1 seed and be competing in the Southeastern Conference championship game, I think is huge. I think you have to give them credit that they have battled through a lot of injuries, and you can only hope that with the time off before they move into the next game to play in the first round against Oklahoma on the road, that they can get healthy. But I was excited to see that they were able to make the college football playoff, and I think they were a deserving team and obviously should have never even been considered to not be in it. But I think this staff has done a really good job, and hopefully they can regroup, get back to the way that they were playing in the midseason, and see if they can get a little bit of revenge in Norman against the Sooners.
Again, it's Hoops with Hendrix, but great to always have football talk from Richard as well. Richard, safe travels coming up for you. We look forward to seeing you back in Tuscaloosa. And again, thank you for your time with us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Roll Tide.
Thank you. Roll Tide.
Our thanks to Richard Hendrix. You'll be seeing him in Tuscaloosa soon for some Alabama basketball as we start to take a look at our upcoming schedule. No football this week, but that still means plenty coming up on the network as we get ready for the college football playoff. Well, next up will be men's basketball against Arizona coming up on Saturday night in Birmingham at Legacy Arena. Tip-off is set for 8:30. Our radio coverage will start at 7:30 all across the network. Then we'll have women's basketball against Jackson State on Sunday afternoon at 2:45. We'll hit the air for that 3 p.m. tip-off. Monday night, we'll be busy with our first basketball edition of Hey Coach at 6 p.m., followed by Coach Kalen DeBoer being in Baumhauer's Victory Grill to preview what's coming up for Alabama against Oklahoma in the college football playoff. So no show on Wednesday like we typically have during the football regular season, but Coach DeBoer, again, will be in person at Baumhauer's in Tuscaloosa with Chris Stewart coming up on Monday night. Then we're going to be busy at Coleman Coliseum the rest of the week, starting on Tuesday night, women's basketball against Sam Houston, and then another doubleheader for both programs, starting with the women's game at 4 o'clock on Wednesday against Tulane, and then men's basketball after that at 7 o'clock tip-off, 7 o'clock, and then our radio airtime will be 6 o'clock all across the network. We will have Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR coming up on Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock to get you ready for Alabama against Oklahoma, and then it will be time for the game. Alabama at OU, 4 p.m. will be the tip-off coming up from Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, and our kickoff will be at 7 o'clock. We look forward to what's coming up for Alabama against Oklahoma in the playoff, and then hopefully after that, we're talking about the Rose Bowl coming up, but that's a look at our upcoming schedule. Make sure you subscribe to us on all of your social media platforms at UA_CTSN for the very latest on Alabama athletics. It's going to wrap up a busy edition of Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR, even though we only had one show this week on this Thursday afternoon. But huge thank you to our guests, Cory Reamer, as well as Richard Hendrix. Thanks as well to Ethan Carabin, our video producer, for putting together our basketball booth cam highlights and putting together this entire show as he has done now for 301 episodes. Thanks to all of you for watching. Hopefully it's a great weekend coming up for Alabama basketball against Arizona and, of course, women's game against Jackson State. And then we look forward to visiting with you next week as we get set for Alabama football and the college football playoff. Until then, have a great rest of your weekend. Roll Tide, everyone.